So, good morning. Good morning to the audience. Good morning to the online viewers. Welcome to the session that will talk about digitalization and its impact on environment. I think it's the first time that we are at the COP representing digital transformation in such numbers and in such strength. This is the first session on digitalization, but there will be many more. There are many more global players having their own events. There is ITU having a series of events, and there is Jesse having a lot of events at the UNFCCC Innovation Hub. So welcome to see what actually digitalization is all about. But before we start, I have a poll question for you. If you can actually enter the Slido and do a poll question, what do you think is the net impact of digitalization on the environment? Are we enabling more, or are we polluting more? So please do have a Slido, and we will display it in a minute or two. We have an exciting panel with us today. I will introduce them a little bit later. But I have two changes to announce to the panel that you see as a difference from the agenda. First, that my boss, which is the General Director of DG Connect, the European Commission, was actually all night at the trialogues trying to negotiate some of the regulations on AI and data and e-wallets and so on. So he actually cannot join us, so he asked me to deliver his welcome and his points. And we also have, unfortunately, the Deputy Mayor of Cascais that is sick, that will not be able to join us. We will manage anyway. We will have a lot to talk about. So my first point, and that is the point basically my General Director wanted to give, is that the green transition and the digital transformation, the nexus of those two mega trends, is just been recently studied and put together. For decades, we were living on another planet. So the digital transformation people and the whole sector was looking at its own problems, and the green sector was looking at theirs, and we didn't really interact. So when the nexus and the mainstreaming nexus came, because there were some organizations like Jesse that already for almost 20 years look at this, the mainstream has just recently looked at the nexus. And what they see often is the conflict. So today I would like to tell you that there is more than the conflict. What we really need to look at is the synergy. The synergy is much more powerful than the conflict. The conflict is something that we as DG Connect, European Commission, take seriously, and we work at data centers, becoming climate neutral, telecoms, we're creating KPIs and code of conduct, how to make telecoms greener. We look at the e-waste. We just issued eco-design criteria, how a phone should be, mobile phone should be built to be durable, to be reparable, to be circular. So all that is being tackled. But if we think about it globally, the impact of digital sector is about, at most, 3% of total emissions. So about an aviation. So it's not negligible. But if making it smaller, making it 2% and saving 1%, that will not make the difference that we want. What will make the difference is to use properly digitalization in all the major sectors, from energy to transport, to industry, to buildings, manufacturing, smart cities. That's where the digitalization can deliver. But does it deliver? Today's panel is, does it deliver, and under which conditions it delivers? So we will have the experts here to tell us, give us examples, and we discuss how exactly digitalization has to be shaped and governed, because not all digitalizations are same. You can do digitalization and actually make a net negative impact on the environment, but the same digital solution can actually be, under the proper governance, design, and use, be very powerful. And that is what we want to tease out today. And that is the work of the Green Digital Coalition that we will present today. So can we have the first result of the poll that will tell us what your opinion is on the overall impact of digitalization? Is it positive or negative on climate? Can we display the first poll question, please? If we are not yet there, if there is not enough, we'll wait a little bit more, so we give you a little bit more time. And we will come to the first speaker then to Luis Neves, who is the CEO of Jesse. Jesse is an organization with has many members, mainly companies, but not only, that is working on green and digital nexus, and especially on the enablement since 2007 or before, so more than 15 years, maybe closer to 20 years. Luis, tell us a little bit, what is the Green Digital Coalition, which you lead as the coordinator of the Commission pilot project, together with the Digital SME Alliance, GSMA, and Ethno, and with Carbon Trust, making the technical support, and Deloitte. So, Luis.
Very good. So, good morning, Elias. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure being here together with these distinguished panelists. And you know, you mentioned the role of digital. This has been the great fight of Jesse as an organization. As you said, we have been promoting the role of technology since over 20 years, the enabling impact of digital technologies without leaving behind also the negative impacts. So we always look to both. It's important to understand what is going wrong and what is going well. And every single piece of research that we've done in the last 20 years, we did 3 smart reports, the digital with purpose report, all of them point to a huge positive impact of digital technologies. And I used to say, do not worry about deploying technology, because the more you deploy, the bigger will be the impact, the positive impact. And I'm very happy that we are here. You said for the first time, we have been fighting to have digital at the center of the climate conversation. We hear a lot about oil and gas, which is important, but we need to look at those technologies that will allow us to respond to the challenge that we have. And digital will be a fundamental technology, and I'm very happy that we have this project with the European Commission. As you said, that we have been working since March 2021. We have currently 39 coalition members. To be a member of the coalition is not easy. Represents a strong commitment around the principles that were discussed and agreed. And we have many requests of companies to be members of the coalition. Not all of them have been accepted. And we are also very proud to have in the coalition not only companies but also partners. And currently we have 14 supporting partners. And Jesse is leading this coalition together with the other industry European associations. You already mentioned them: Digital SME Alliance, Ethno, GSMA, Digital Europe, and of course with the technical support of Carbon Trust and Deloitte. And I hope that we can continue the work of the coalition, because we are at the very beginning. We are talking about the net positive impact of digital technologies. But digital technologies impact more than carbon, so impact the overall society. There is a social impact as well of the technologies, and we need to understand the role of technologies for education, health and well-being, and many other industry sectors that we impact as an industry, and it's important that we also measure that impact if we want really to bring the world on track. And that's why this year, for the first time, we managed to have here at COP the Global Innovation Hub, where we will have permanent discussions from morning to night, from 10 to 6 o'clock, about digital technologies and its impact on climate. So we are trying to build this agenda, and I hope that we can continue to work with the European Commission. Jesse is a global organization, but I hope that this work in Europe will spread, because Europe is leading this agenda, and we see that also from the partner side, as we have partners from Singapore, from Taiwan, and so the World Bank that is now pushing us as well. And it's important that we create a coalition which is beyond the digital world. We need the other partners to speak with us and also to let us know and understand what is their view. Otherwise, we remain inside our own house, and we can also be considered biased in terms of what we are trying to achieve. And that's why, in that regard, GS is also unique. The other industry organizations, they are business organizations. In GESI, we work with the universities, we work with the United Nations, we have many different, European Commission, many different stakeholders, and every piece of work that we do, we bring them into our conversation. So every report that we do, it's a technical report on one side, but it's also a report that brings the other dimensions of the other partners and the other actors that really make those reports credible and also widely accepted. And so we are very proud of dealing this group of companies and partners and working with the European Commission. So here it's not very clear, but I mentioned to you at the beginning that EGDC members, so companies that want to join, they need to make a commitment. And that commitment needs to be signed by the CEOs. So we make sure that there is a very high level engagement with the coalition. It's not only about a communication exercise where companies put their name. It's about really companies to join and work together, joining forces to design what we want to achieve in a credible way, make it transparent, so we make sure that the end result is widely accepted and is not challenged or even named as a greenwashing exercise. And so it's very important as we are now approaching the end of the first 2 years of the coalition, whereby we are finalizing the methodology, that methodology will be then widely accepted and then deployed and implemented in the real world and in real situations. So the expected outcomes of the coalition is, Elias already mentioned, some of them, developing KPIs. It's very important. If we want to measure, we need to have the indicators. The methodology is about calculating the net positive impact of given technologies. So it's important that we understand what is good in the solution, but also what is the problem of the solution. And then we will find whether the solution is having a net positive impact or not impact at all, or even a negative impact. And so this is the way that we have been working. We have been analyzing 18, the project is about analyzing 18 case studies. We received many case studies in the coalition, but we developed the criteria under which any case study could be accepted. And it was not easy to find the case studies. Because the criteria that was designed, it was very demanding, very challenging. And so through that process, we also understand how companies were approaching the communication around the so-called green technologies. But when we looked into the criteria that we designed, they were not passing the thresholds. So many solutions that have been presenting to the coalition work, they were not accepted. And only those that respected the thresholds that we identified, they went to the next step. And we have been working on these 18 case studies covering different sectors. They are here: transport, construction, buildings, agriculture, smart cities, and manufacturing. And we have been engaging with all these sectors to understand also their view and to better design the methodology. And now we are also developing the guidelines for each sector to give guidance as all this will be deployed. So this is, in conclusion, this is a challenging project, very engaging, very transparent, and it's important as we are coming to the end of the project, that we deploy the methodology and then the companies use it. If the companies are not using it, the exercise will not mean anything. What is also important is that we understand that this is the first step. And I think, and we have been discussing with the European Commission, that we continue this work. If we want to ensure the digital transition or the twin transition, and if we want to ensure that digital will be at the center of the climate conversation, it's important that Europe continues this role of leadership, working with the industry. And in the coalition, we have not only European companies, we have multinational companies, Americans, and others. So it's important that we work together, come to the conclusion of the project, continue it, working together, deploying and making sure that the results will be widely applied, and hopefully in maybe 2-3 years' time, instead of being in this room, we will be in the main room of the COP 2030 maybe, or COP 31. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure being here, and I will sit here. I'm not part of the panel, but I will take as well, Elias, a couple of questions if necessary. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you. So you get a little bit of an idea what the Green Digital Coalition is about. just repetition is the mother of knowledge. Green Digital Coalition is not a green pledge coalition. These companies are not pledging that they will cut emissions. The Green Digital Coalition is a unique, and the specific goal of the coalition is to help the other sectors to get their sustainability goals with the help of digitally enabled innovation. So it's about helping the others. It's not about committing themselves. Because there are many green coalitions pledging how I will be faster than you in the net zero area. This is not that. So this is really the unique place where people actually come together to say, how do we agree on metrics? What is the impact of digitalization? Because today, every company had their own little calculators, how many emissions they abate, how many emissions they reduce. And that was not taken seriously by the politicians. If every company separately comes in and says, trust me, I can cut 300 million, just deploy 5G in your city and trust me, it doesn't go well. So if all the companies with the scientists agree on one method to count it, then the green public procurers can trust that methodology. And you can actually enable finance, and we will talk about it when we get there. So in brief, Green Digital Coalition is the only place where so far so many players came together to develop a standard on how do we really judge the impact of digitalization. And we will get some examples now, and it's not obvious, and we will discuss that. The rebound effects are very simple. So you can really start with the best ideas and very quickly get yourself in a negative territory if you don't govern the solutions properly. So let me start with the panel, and I will start the first panelist, Julia White. She's a Chief Marketing and Solution Officer and member of the Executive Board of a multinational company called SAP. SAP is very well known. I see the SAP logo all the time. I watch NHL games, because I'm very big fan of NHL. So SAP is very big also in US.
Yes.
You are in many markets. So tell us, what is the role of digital companies like yours in enabling the sustainability transition, and how important is the work of the coalition?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the alignment of this coalition and what SAP does is very tight, so we're thrilled about being part of this, because effectively, as the IT sector, it's incumbent upon us to bring our core competency to the challenge of sustainability. And to your point on SAP, we have 400,000 customers across the globe who've run their companies on our technology. So, and the challenges 50 years ago when we started was to measure and manage finance, supply chain, asset management, inventory. Today's challenge is about measuring and managing sustainability, whether that be carbon, emissions, water, circular usage. And so we're incredibly focused on taking our core competency around digitizing business processes, digitizing how business leaders make decisions, and bringing sustainability into that. So now our vision that we're actively building, right, of today the technology companies use from us managing their top line, their revenue, their profitability, now bringing in what we talk about, the green line, your emissions, your carbon. And so you have that visibility as a business leader to say, this is how I maximize revenue, this is how I maximize profit, this is how I maximize my sustainability impact, minimize in that case on that front. And so we have to bring that clarity, and it's the idea of you can't manage what you can't measure. Right? And so our ability to bring forth using technology, using our core competency in IT and making something very measurable so that then you can manage it, right? In the course of business, right? Not outside in other systems, but just like I'm running my business, I can also make smart sustainability choices. But actually a great example, working with one of Europe's largest steel producers, and bringing forward, just bringing them the visibility of what is their carbon emission, what is the water, their usage. And just bringing that transparency, they're able and empowered to start making better decisions about how they're doing that and really helping them get towards their goal around green steel production, just as one of many examples within the European Union. But I think the other aspect I'm very excited about is we also, as a company, we run the world's largest B2B network, which is really been historically about suppliers, buyers, finding each other. But now, again, we can bring in carbon. So we can actually say, are you tracking carbon across your value chain? Right now we need to get to accurate measurements, harmonized measurements, important work to be done. But we have the technology to bring to that solution to say, once we have those measurements and standards in place, which I know we're working on this week, how can we make it just, again, part of the course of business so people can make smart decisions and report accurately in that? So
Very
just
good.
a few examples.
I will come back to you on two things. One is you will be interested in the work we do on digital product passport, tracking, tracing the supply chains and sustainability of products. So this is another chain of work stream that I work on. But the second is you assume that if you know, you give a dashboard to managers. So you say, now you see your financial, social, and environmental implication as a company. Do you see that they actually act on it properly?
Well, the interesting thing, I mean, most companies have made these commitments. But when then you ask them in a private room, how are you tracking to it? Do you feel like you're going to get there? They don't know, right? So
What do they need to do?
the implications, I mean, once they have the transparency of it, we do see they're hungry for that clarity so they can make better decisions on it. So we have seen, in the case that I use of the steel manufacturing company, they're interested in making the choice. They're ready to make those choices. This isn't always clear.
Right. Well, we'll come back to that.
Yep.
So Kaspar Herzberg, he is the CEO of AVEVA, industrial software company, and a member of Schneider Electric Executive Board. So as a major industrial software company, can you give us some examples so actually people see what we're talking about here as a software, and what do you already measure as an impact on environment?
So I'll give you, I'll give you 3 examples, right? Let me start with a simple one, which is anyone who lives in Dubai knows that when it's summer, you have to bring a very warm pullover to the office. Because what happens when the sun goes down, the building still continues to cool, and it becomes extremely cold, right? So the truth is, clearly with building management systems, by connecting many of them, by connecting all the sensors in buildings, there's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can do across not just one building, but across entire cities. And you can not just make it a more livable environment for the workers, for the knowledge workers, but also save 15+% of energy consumption. I think this is a well-known example. What baffles me always, despite many good cases, there's a Schneider one, there's many others, right, is how little that gets done at scale, right? So this is something to just keep in mind. The second example is in heavy industry. So Covestro, it's in the news here recently. It's a big German chemical, international chemical producer, one with the most aggressive pledge to be, I think, net zero by 2035. So what they do is they take millions of sensors, the data of millions of sensors across all of their facilities, aggregate that in a way that they can run predictive analytics. So that's like AI-driven analytics to automate not just things like maintenance planning and preventing unplanned shutdown, but also generally taking energy out of the production process. And that's, again, you know, in the high teens, the returns you get. So these are good returns. The last example, if you allow me, is on the renewable energy generation. So when you travel the world, you see windmills all over the world now. You also see windmills stopped. And one of the reasons for that is that it's apparently, as I learned in Texas, hard to find the crews that want to climb and repair it. This is not people's dream job. So the more you can deploy the same type of concepts, right? The concepts of using the data from the turbines, aggregating it on the cloud, if you can, right? Running, again, predictive analytics, running even large language models where you have untrained operators that can then ask, you know, what should I do now? Why is it broken? Who should I talk to? Is it broken? Will it break? Taking the wind direction, the temperature, the vibration, all of these little data, not just over 1 year or 2 years, over 10, 15 years for older places. And then you can prevent things like a $3 million shutdown that would cost you $3 million, etc. So there's a lot that technology can do. And to your point, which I think is a great one, there's a lot technology can also do to cut out unnecessary decision-making out of the operation of industrial assets, right? So you can just streamline that without, in the industrial side, AI is fairly safe, right? Because the data sets are limited. So you can streamline some of that decision-making and get better
Right.
better results. Yeah.
So in the three cases you mentioned, now if we take them by the coalition, suppose you give us all the data,
Yeah.
we would calculate what is the footprint of all these sensors to be produced,
Yes.
because if you
Yeah.
change them every year, there is a footprint behind the
Yeah.
materials.
Yeah.
What is the sensor of the machine learning? What is the
Yeah.
energy consumption? So there is a footprint, significant footprint
Yeah.
to put these millions of sensors and data points together. There is a cloud that has to run on data center.
Yeah, that's true.
So there is a footprint
That's
to
true.
get this analytics towards you.
Yeah.
Then we need to also capture what are the benefits of that.
Yeah.
And if you say, I can save 3 million this, it already shows that you can pay for it easily in terms of a carbon enablement. So, but that calculation needs to be done for Sarah, that will tell
Yeah.
us later, to be able to say, yes, I can give you financing for you to deploy and scale such sensor and analytics in order to make sure that you are net positive. So just to put it in perspective, what we're doing in the coalition, because we talk about it, we say, trust me, the numbers, trust me, it will be positive, but we actually need to prove it. And people don't measure. There is not enough data to measure. So we would ask you, take the opportunity that you and everybody else in the audience, if you are in digital solution deployment, think about what you need to measure to prove it and then benefit from sustainable finance. So let us go to the third panelist, Sally Radwan from the United Nations Environment Programme. You were recently appointed as the Chief Digital Officer. It never happened before in UNEP, so this is completely new job. You are the first. It's kind of a virgin land, what to do there. So take us a little bit through what is United Nations Environment Programme doing in digitalization and what Coalition could do for you.
I hope you can hear me. Yeah, this seems to be working. Good morning, everyone, and my apologies for being stuck in the queue for an hour. So sorry I was late. So at UNEP, our mandate is basically centered around what we call the triple planetary crises, which is climate change, nature and biodiversity, including deforestation, and pollution, chemicals, hazards, and waste. And as a digital transformation subprogram is what we call ourselves, we support and enable all of these pillars. And we do so in two different ways. In the EU, you call it the twin transition. At UNEP, we call it the two sides of the coin, which is how do we deploy digital technologies to address these challenges and to help member states tackle them. And then the other side is what you were just talking about, which is how do we reduce the footprint of technology itself? How do we make sure that these technologies are deployed responsibly and ethically and with minimal impact on the environment? And so along these kind of 5 intersected areas, we work on implementation, we work on capacity building, and we work, of course, on our normative mandate as well. Just to give you a couple of very quick examples, we started building something called the World Environment Situation Room, which is kind of our flagship digital platform. And what we're hearing from our member states and other stakeholders is there's a bit of monitoring fatigue out there for global environmental data. So they don't want yet another platform that tells them that there are methane emission hotspots and there are, air quality is not great most of the time in most big cities, and there is deforestation getting worse everywhere. They want actually insights out of this data. They want policy recommendations, and they want planning aids. So you were just giving the example of Sarah making a financing decision from the World Bank based on data, and this is very true. This is what we need to do more of. So one of the tool sets in that World Environment Situation Room that we're building is an impact calculator for new projects. So if you're a country and you're looking to deploy a new technology or implement a new environmental project, you can in advance play around with the variables that you would include in that project, and you would see the potential impact, positive and negative. So you would see what you're going to gain, but also the potential environmental impact along different lines. So this is kind of a whole area of deploying technology for serving the environment. The other side, as I said, is making sure that this is done responsibly and ethically. So on the normative side, we're engaged in developing a global environmental data strategy, which we very much hope to collaborate with all of you on, which is around how do we exchange environmental data? How do we ensure its quality and that it's fit for purpose for certain applications? But then also how do we exchange and share best practices around environmental data governance and sharing around the world? So this is like a very high-level overview, but happy to get into details later.
Thank you. And that's, you bring another aspect of kind of important aspect that we work on, and that's the green data spaces. So Commission has introduced this concept. It's kind of still confusing to a lot of people, the data space. But basically what we do the infrastructural elements and the governance. And the governance is already legislated by Digital Governance Act, Data Governance Act and Data Act. So we hope that we will create an environment where data does not need to be put together in one place. They can sit wherever they sit, and people can, under the correct governance rules, utilize the data, because there's a huge underutilization of the data that we have already. Okay. There is a poll number 1 that some of you already have answered the question, and I will tell you because that's an opportunity. When I talk to the heads of environmental agencies of Europe, and I ask them, is digitalization for you a solution or a pollution? 75% answered it's a pollution. That was 3 years ago. Today, the poll suggests exactly the opposite. So over 3 years, there is a slowly better and better understanding what digital is about. It's not only these polluting data centers, it's actually a very powerful tool for me. AI also may have helped or not. So now we have 75% answering that it's more of a solution than it's a pollution. But again, it has to be measured and it has to be governed. So this is the point that we want you to get home with. Now, Sarah, thank you for flying in. You just arrived.
I did.
Like me, we had like 1 hour of sleep tonight. So what is the World Bank about? I know you funding digital infrastructures in Africa, Asia, Latin America, even parts of Europe, West Balkans and East Europe. How do you know when you fund something that is digital, if it's sustainable or not? I mean, when do you know, when you don't know, and what coalition can do for you?
Great, thank you very much. So maybe let me first zoom out a bit and tell a little bit about what we actually do. So I come from the digital development part of the World Bank. And we invest together with countries, so we don't invest in companies. My sister organization, IFC, they invest in companies. They could be the ones investing in the example mentioned before. But in my part of the bank, we invest together with governments, and we invest in digital ecosystems. And it's quite holistic. So it's a lot of digital infrastructure. So it's bridging the digital divide. It's connecting the 1/3 of the world that doesn't have access still to digital connectivity. It's doing a lot of other things also. It's investing in digital skills, in digital governments, in digital safeguards, in many different things. In our projects, we also invest together with our other parts of the bank. So this part is really the digital sector itself, but we also invest with other parts of the bank. So we work with our energy colleagues, or we work with our agriculture colleagues, or we connect schools. So we're also in the game of enablement. In terms of the digital sector itself, we have different efforts to green that. And we have methodologies on how we look at that. I'll get back to that. In terms of what we do together with the other sectors and enablement, it's more fuzzy. And that's where I'm very excited to hear about the work of Jesse and the coalition.
Very good.
In terms of the digital sector itself, together with the other development banks, we have methodologies for how we look at that. And that's to avoid that we're not comparing apples and pears, exactly as you're saying. It's only recently, though, that the digital sector became a part of those methodologies. So we have come far, but there's still uncertainties, and they are evolving. In terms of the enablement effect, we don't have that yet. Other sectors, transport, they have wonderful methodologies in terms of how they will do the emissions of a transport project. But if we put in something on smart mobility, a digital device, we don't have a way yet to measure that.
Perfect. So that's music to our ears. You need us, right? So let us work together from now on, because we will have a digital coalition part 2 that will bring financials, local authorities, and vertical sector. But it's an opportunity to say the following. Let me rephrase GFK. It's not only what digital can do for green, it's also what green can do for digital. And their digital transformation needs sustainable finance. Digital infrastructures have a still problem to scale to match the needs that will come from green transition. So we need to make sure that there is a synergy both ways, that the green financing can actually support the digital transformation that will realize the potential of cuts of 20, 30% of the emissions if we do it properly, rather than just focusing on how to make the 3% 2%. That is the direct footprint, you see? So that is not, it's less talked about. So that's why it's very important that you are there with us. Unfortunately, we don't have Miguel, who is the deputy mayor of Cascais, to tell us how city thinks of digital innovation. And when they have to digitalize, they of course have to digitalize for elderly people, for mobility, for waste treatment, for efficiency of public buildings. So all boils in a local environment, and they have to make sense out of it. And it's not always easy. So unfortunately, he got sick and he cannot be with us. So hopefully next time. So let's come back to Julia. After what you've heard, as an EGDC member, what is the call for action? What should we do? What you see as a kind of a next step for us?
Right. Well, I think, I mean, in the spirit of the coalition too, I think the biggest call to action is that we collaborate together. And I think one of the things we really enjoyed as part of a membership is it is a collaboration. It's not you telling us or us telling you. It is really about how do we come together and innovate on these ideas, right? And very much bringing our engineers and the people building these digital solutions to the table to learn and to listen, and vice versa.
Right.
And so I think it is about no one company, no one country is going to solve this. It really takes that just even the innovations that we've spoken about coming together on that front. And then I think too, I love what we're doing within the EU, and I think we have a huge opportunity to decarbonize while we prosper. But it's also about reaching across the borders as well, right? With the US particularly, but China as well, thinking about how do we bring what you're able to do here and then propagate it and work across the globe.
Very good. And there is one more thing that maybe let's take the opportunity. I'll look at you and just hit me.
Yeah.
60% of companies don't have the expertise to bring green and digital together. Of course, there is not one PhD that will understand the full scope of environmental research and environmental technologies, and at the same time understand the nitty-gritty of AI. So those people don't exist. So you need a team to make it happen.
Right.
So what is the challenge for companies like you and Aveva to really bring the team to understand the power of green digital? What are you doing about that?
Right.
The skills.
Yeah, and bring that. And I actually think, there is the enablement and the skills and learning from each other, but I want to pick up on what you said too, is I do think right now we're on the cusp of generative AI as a new capability that the world has that we can apply to this challenge, which in many ways is making something that's very complicated very easy. And I think about one of the very first pilots we tried with generative AI within SAP was taking one of our clients' kind of supply chain understanding and mapping it to the European Union standards. Right. And that's a complicated process, many steps, many connected dots, and we used generative AI, and it became incredibly easy. And so it's just an example of we have this new technology, new digital capability. We talk about the footprint of it, of course, an important conversation, but that we can actually bring together very disparate understandings of things and make it understandable.
So it's a powerful tool to bring the understanding of the team where to act.
And bring that green with the digital capability.
And that's actually almost the same question to you, Kaspar. You are joining the coalition now, so as a supporting partner. Where do you see the benefit for you as a company that the methodology that we develop and the guidelines per sector that we develop, how it's going to benefit you, and what do you see as the next step to tailor it so it actually makes impact on the ground and scalable impact?
So I think one of the first things to realize is that the awareness of what green digital is not necessarily always the same, right? And to be fair, I think there are a lot of good people, good developers, huge communities of developers that think that what they're doing is clearly helping, right? They're developing something that is going to save energy somewhere else, but they're not necessarily thinking about what they're doing themselves at all, right? And there is a lot of waste in development. There is unnecessary data searches. There is huge amounts of data that are stored in places where you don't need them, that are moved around the world on the cloud without need. I think that both creating the awareness internally, which I mean is usually a first step. You make an announcement and you join an organization and you try to both understand what other people have already done to the point of collaboration, and then you try to implement as much of that as is possible, and maybe also influence, of course, a bit the development of these standards. So that'd be like the first part. The second one for me, and this is maybe a more technical one, is the idea of data in context. Not all data needs to travel. Not all data needs to be uploaded and then stored forever for 1 million years at a massive, well, really, at a massive footprint. It doesn't.
It's a
right?
footprint.
It can stay next to the machine. It can stay next to where it belongs, and it can only be accessed, uploaded, downloaded, just for a given task. And I think this, we call that data in context or hybrid, if you like. Maybe making that part of the discourse is important. I think both for the ultimate footprint of digital on the planet, and also for the speed at which you're able to make things happen.
Right.
So these are just the thoughts I had. So we're very honored to be part of it, right? And I think it's going to be a very important part of educating our workforce.
Your team, yes.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yeah.
And what you mentioned is very important. There is, I mean, anybody who is in digital innovation, and I will say it at the end, that's kind of my concluding remarks. There are a lot of young people, and I see a lot of young people joining us today, that are digital natives, and they are in the startup, and they have the best ideas about how to tackle climate change through innovation that is digitally enabled. But there is something that you need to keep in mind, the frugality principle. The minimum number of gadgets, minimum number of data transports, data collections should do the job. So you always look at what is the minimum of to do what I want to do. Because at the moment, people never thought about the cost of storing data. So everybody is just wasting data as if it doesn't matter. Yes. Digital world is not virtual. It's not that I just copy all this data in 3 places just in case. It is very material. So the frugality principles is what you brought is very important to us, okay? So Sally, there is a question for you already online, so I will bring it together with mine. Just need to. It's a question that would be great to know if UNEP has methodologies. If you already have some kind of a methodology that defines what digitalization and digital solutions, when they are sustainable, have you ever worked on that? Or can we then collaborate for you to see that? Because you have CODES, David, and you collecting, you kind of have a big dashboard of what's happening around the world with respect to digital and sustainability across the triple crisis, biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change. And that is another reminder, climate change is not the only problem. Equally important is pollution and biodiversity loss. There are 3 equivalent crises that we need to tackle, and digitalization needs to do something for that. So what is UNEP doing with respect to methodologies like us, or what do you see that we could do together?
That's a really important question, and I think also listening to the conversation now, what we really do need is better ways of quantifying not just the impact, but the targets for how do we measure the environmental footprint of technology. What is the right methodology? So things like the frugality principle that you just mentioned, but there are also other ways we can deploy. At UNEP, we're starting to move in that direction a little bit. We're exploring kind of different sectors. So we're just launching, or just launched actually, a Digital for Circularity report yesterday that talks about kind of methods and best practices for digital circularity. But also, we do need quantitative measures, and we're hoping to achieve that, among other things, through CODES, which is the Coalition for Digital Environment Sustainability, that includes several UN agencies and member states, as well as NGOs and private sector companies, working on 9 impact initiatives. One of which is around data. So how do we harness data better to be able to measure the impact and to be able to exchange solutions in a more effective way. And there's another one on circularity and digital public infrastructure, including hopefully digital product passports, which will also help us along that quantification continuum. The other thing I wanted to mention is the importance of capacity building and knowledge sharing. And this is something that, of course, we look at the whole world, so global north, global south, developing countries, developed countries, and the importance of exchange here, of exchanging these best practices and the knowledge, is also something that we're trying to achieve using the World Environment Situation Room. So part of it is going to be called the Solutions Hub, where countries, and I know for a fact that many countries in the EU and obviously many private sector companies as well, have solutions that they would love to be able to deploy in the global south and share with the rest of the world. And this will be a good place to do that. So other member states will be able to log in and have a look at not only what the solution was, but what is the technology used, how can I do an effective, meaningful tech transfer, but also the financing. So how do I access possible financing to implement this solution? So we're starting in many different directions, and hopefully over the next year and through our various partnerships, through CODES and also bilaterally with the coalition, we'll be able to achieve more over the next year.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask the organizers to launch the second poll question, if possible. So I don't know where to look. And get ready. Maybe we'll go into Q&A. So I just have one question for Sarah, and then I will come back to Luis to make his point of what you heard, what your summary of that. And if you can also get in the shoes of a deputy mayor of Cascais, that's your favorite city anyway, and tell us. I know 60% of people working in municipality have no clue what we're talking about. So when we give them a lot of money, European Union funds green transition and green and digital transition, but these people don't want the money because they don't know what it is and how to spend it. So think about that, it's coming, in addition to all the other points you have. So Sarah, what do you see as the next step for us? What kind of partnerships, what can we do to work together to make the methodology work for you?
Thanks. So maybe let me explain how I see the problem. And we actually also put out a report this week, like many others. And in there, we also looked at all the countries' national contributions. And what we saw was that in low and middle income countries, 79% of countries actually reference digital technologies either for adaptation or for mitigation. So it's interesting to see that it's already in there, that countries are seeing it as part of their climate strategies. However, when we looked at what they are doing, it's a very narrow range of things. It's often early warning systems, it's use of data, so there's scope for being much more expansive across many other use cases. What we also see is that it's the type of things, the type of digital applications is often kind of ad hoc. It's often pilots. There's lots of it. We see lots of it, but we don't see it in a very strategic way. So we see lots of pilots, but we don't see them scaling. Mm-hmm. So really the challenge for us, and this is back to the decision making, how can we help governments choose what is effective? Where is the impact? And that's really what I would like to see the collaboration around. That is that visibility on impact. Where is the enablement effect? So we can go in and finance, but we want to finance where the impact is, and the governments want to do the same. So that's really what I'm hoping to get out of this.
And your lending is sizable.
It's sizable.
And the last thing you want is what I call pilotitis.
Exactly.
Pilotitis is the worst disease we can have in this area.
I say pilots.
Everybody wants pilot because they are kind of protected from legal and the real world, because they have this piece of sand they can play with. But everybody is afraid of scaling up because they don't know. They still don't know what's happening. What is the real impact? So Luis, your reaction, and then we will open to crowds and for questions.
So I'd like to say two or three things. One is we need to do our mea culpa as an industry, because the issues that we are talking about today,
Close.
they are not new. So Jesse was born at UNEP, and we were created as an organization to measure the impact of the infrastructure, the telecommunications infrastructure, 25 years ago, when we were born in Paris. And that was our main challenge at the time. But at that time, we were not talking about climate change. So we are at COP28, so as you can see, but the last 20 years, the problems of our industry, they rocketed. It's supply chain impacts, it's circular economy, it's digital inclusion, it's privacy and security. So today, in our analysis at Jesse, what we have been seeing is a growing problem that we are not yet facing in the right manner. So the conversation about circular economy is a very old conversation. There is not a single company, to my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, that has a circular economy strategy in place. To talk about design of products is not new. When I was at Deutsche Telekom, we discussed 15 years ago, 18 years ago, how to design a product for sustainability. But it was very difficult because it was not a priority of the company. And so we need to move away from the conversation, and we need to act as companies, as an industry. And this is a fundamental step that in Jesse we recommend our members to do. It's about to walk the talk. It's not about, making promises that I will be reducing my, carbon emissions by 30% or 40%. That conversation needs to just get rid of it, but act. Realize that through an approach or a risk management approach, actually, we can deliver huge value inside the companies.
Right.
And so that's my first point. The second point is that we're talking about climate, but the digital divide component is huge. And connectivity and deployment of digital technologies could be fundamental to address most of the pressing challenges that we are facing. In one of our reports, in one of our studies, we came to the conclusion that 5% more investment in connectivity would generate a 12% increase in GDP globally. And this was done in 2015. Just a second, Elias. So investing in digital brings a value, creates better environments, better life for people, and connectivity will allow you then to have better or access to education, to health services, and so on and so on and so on. So you can not have smart agriculture if you do not have connectivity. So we need to think about that. The planet is evolving in a direction that in 50 years' time we will have 11 billion people that needs to have access as well. So then my final point, our industry or the definition of digital today is very, very broad, because the digital definition 25 years ago, it was about a telecommunications company. Today, digital is much, much, much larger. And so how do we measure all of that? And then my next question is, why the hell should I be worried about my impacts when I know that the enabling capacity is much higher? So I'm coming to your point. We have measured the footprint of the industry globally many times. Let's take it that it's 5% of the global emissions. But the enabling impact of digital technology in our 2015 report, it was 20% reduction equivalent to the GDP of China. So let's invest on technology, let's deploy, because that's the answer to the challenge that we are facing, not only in terms of climate, but also in terms of all the other components connected with climate. And I'm coming to Cascais now. I cannot speak on behalf of the mayor. He spoke very, he was very smart yesterday in our session. He was amazing. And Maria was moderating the session. Maybe she can tell better than me what he said. But the city of Cascais has been deploying technology for the citizens in every single vertical sector. And the quality of living in that city is amazing. Is, for me, I do not know all the world, is one of the top cities that everyone should follow. They have a cockpit that manages the overall system, waste, traffic, you name it. And they are really providing quality service to the citizens. They have a better environment. They have reduced their footprint in the city. They are measuring that. They know how much they reduce their footprint in the city. So my final point is, why do not follow these simple examples? Take them and then invest on those. Deploy them at scale so we can give the answer to the problems that we are facing.
Very good. Cities is where things happen, so there we see a lot of impact on the local basis because people feel it. It's actually, they live it and they see it in their daily life. Huh? Now, on your point before, invest in technology and don't worry. Well, that's where coalition comes in and says it's not so simple. So I give you two examples, and then I ask you if you are actually working on digital solutions. In precision farming, one way to digitalize farming is to subsidize gadget buying by farmers. To say, guys, buy laptop, buy iPad, meteorological station, AI routine, subscription to Copernicus or to whatever private satellite imaging. Buy, buy, buy. Do you think that the footprint of all this buying of gadgets will pay for itself, that they will know how to use it, that they will actually use frugality, that they buy one drone for at least 10 hectares and not one drone for 3 acres, So that has a limit. So at some point, this type of digitalization of agriculture by flooding farmers with gadgets that are not interested in the first place, that will deliver, that's a digitalization that may actually be negative. Instead, Aveva or SAP go to Bayer or Syngenta and say, guys, why don't we offer services? Why don't you offer service and you ask farmers to give you a fixed price per hectare, and I will take care with the with the minimum number of gadgets. I will apply minimum number of chemicals because it's a cost to me. Gadgets and chemicals are costs. So I will make sure I do the best I can to avoid using them. And that, another digitalization, you see. But of course, you need connectivity. That's for sure. So, and same with mobility. So there's Hamburg that has Moya service. They have this plan to get 10,000 autonomous cars going around the city, taking you from A to B. Now, if people keep buying their own cars, and if they use that instead of public transport, again, that may not be the best way to do. So you have to minimize the ownership, maximize the synergy with the public transport. So there are big choices on governance that when you say as a mayor, yes, I want digitalization like mobility as a service, but I want to plan the time and hours and place that synergizes with public transport, so I make sure that there is a positive impact. So digitalization does not give you automatically positive impact. And the question is, are you guys involved in a digital solution build-up? And how do you know what is the best design and use to make positive impact instead of negative? So anybody that could share or have a question? Because I saw on the poll that asks, so the poll question that you are answering at the moment is, are you involved in digital solution? Yes or no? If you are involved, how do you know if you actually have a positive impact on environment? Yes or no? I do, I don't. But there's somebody that does know, and I wanted to know who is that person. And how do you know that your solution is positive? So, sorry, if you want to hide, don't raise your hand. But other questions? Yes. So another member of the coalition.
It's a member of the coalition. It's a member of the coalition. Hi, my name is Fernando Reina da Costa. I'm the CEO of a new partner, a system integrator. Well, we are in this journey, right, Elias? And what we already are doing is in some solutions, and one of the examples, we did measure the impact. It's virtualization for desktops, in the sense that the impact is first energy, because you will have energy centralized in a data center, but also the fact that in the use and reuse, the circularity, you are creating 20% more end of life for laptops and desktops. And this is huge. If you are talking about the bank, it's in the bank with extensive number of desktops and laptops. So it's creating that impact. What we do is, what's the challenge? Is the calculator. You talk about the calculator. We based our calculations on some information from the United Nations, and we saw the reduction, and we used that for the customer. The impact was quite important in a sense, and this is also, the insight that I would like to also share. I think it's quite important to have the measurement. We know that all the solutions, and we talk about that, all the solutions have positive impact. You know that I have that idea, but in order to accelerate it, in order to have it on the sustainability report at the enterprise level, to have a digital solution, a digital project, a roadmap there, we need to measure it, because if you don't measure it, you won't be there, so you won't be a priority. And a decision won't be based on the impact on sustainability, but it will be on cost reduction, innovation, productivity, all the other key decision topics that we are managing on digital transition as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a question, but important point for you to recall: if you want to know what is the impact of digitalization, don't think only of electricity consumption. The bigger problem is the material consumption, and the way we use our electronics and how soon we change them and throw them away. The material and embedded emissions to produce them somewhere outside, mostly in countries with a bad energy mix, is a bigger problem. So virtualization. So if you're a company and you want to run IT business, think of as a service. Go to companies that can do it as a cloud. Virtualize it, okay? Question.
More of a comment as well. Good afternoon.
Closer.
Good afternoon. My name is Dimitri. I'm the CEO of a company called netzero.com. We're a technology company helping Fortune 500 companies, governments, and listed businesses measure emissions used in AI and reduce emissions. So when it comes to understanding the impact of certain initiatives, what we find particularly useful is being able to look into the source data, not approximations, not estimates, but look into invoices, look at the line items on the supplier invoices and see what is being bought, where the products are coming from, and understand that level of granularity, and only then you can measure. But also, what I think is extremely important to discuss is the ROI of digital solutions. I spend a lot of time talking to CEOs and boards of Fortune 500 companies, and what makes a difference is when they see the positive financial impact of the initiatives that they're about to embark on.
Right.
And there is this concept called marginal abatement cost curve, MAC, where you can essentially create a diagram of all potential projects ranked by carbon impact and the cost. And when the boards see that, then they see that 50 projects can actually deliver the measurable impact on the emissions and also deliver a measurable impact on the bottom line. That's when magic happens. So my question is, how do we, as an industry, help educate more and more companies and help them show that the green transition can be profitable and it should be profitable. It's not just a CapEx.
Yes. So this is the €1 trillion question. I mean, dollars, whatever, local dollars. Anybody would like to take a shot? Because this is actually another kind of a bigger picture for you to keep. Sustainability has 3 dimensions. Recently, we talked more about one, the environmental, but sustainability has 3 dimensions: economic, social, and environmental. And digitalization has to optimize against all 3 of them. For the 30 years, digitalization was a buddy with economic, and kind of, wandered with the other 2. Now is the time where we say digital can do across the board. I mean, somebody says there are no solutions, only trade-offs, but there is an optimization across those 3. And that's what you're talking about. So anything that you can bring in, yes.
Actually,
Caspar and Julia.
Yeah, I'll keep it very short. I think it's initiatives like this one that set standards that you sign up to. If you understand the standards that you want to execute against, you can do profit sharing, and profit sharing drives business, right? At the moment, there's very little profit sharing when it comes to sustainability, because the metrics against which you measure are not shared, are not understood, or are not shared or understood. The more you create one standard, the more people will feel comfortable to either take the risk or to share what they will gain.
Right.
That'd be my guess.
Methodology and standard is what the coalition is about. We would like to create that standard, and the next step is to bring your guys, your clients, to understand how to use it. Okay, Julia, anything you would like
Yeah, and I
to
think the example you gave is a great one. Once businesses are efficient when they have the information and they can be transparent, and leaders see that. And they are efficient about when they see their competitors doing it, following quickly as well. And so I think the best thing we can do is showcase that, and then people will watch each other quickly on that front. And you've seen big mega trends like cloud computing had both a business benefit and a sustainability benefit, right? You're seeing AI quickly realizing like this is too energy and it's also expensive. And so we're going now quickly to narrow AI models, right? So it is efficient when they can see that. But I agree. I think we see much more alignment of business profitability and sustainability coming to the fore, much more than people believe. But the data is starting to really play that out.
Right. Sarah?
Just want to add, it's the exact same for countries. When I work in a lot of countries that have very low emissions. So if I go and just talk about emissions, they're just going to be blank. It has to be about other things, solving other problems. And if we do that together, then we can also talk about the emissions. But it has to solve other problems.
I mean, that brings me to another kind of a home message to take with you. Something that should stick with you is the following: there is many areas where digitalization can make a lot of difference, but the top for me is enabling circular economy. How do I serve the people's needs in developing countries? Shelter, food, job, leisure, whatever. How can I serve that and decouple it from primary natural resources? How can I do it with less materials? And that's really difficult because cities are about cement and steel. But mobility doesn't need to be as many cars. Light doesn't need to be as many bulbs. There are many ways that you can do a product as a service. And that's digital can shine, because without digital you cannot do it. Any other question? Because we have online.
I have one question.
We have online speaker for 2 minutes, yeah. So Soren is a GIZ. I mean, he will introduce himself. He's our soldiers around the world. It's a German development agency that is working throughout the world and helping us scale what we work on. Soren, welcome.
Yes. Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Soren, you have to be loud because we have a decibel war with the guys across the wall, so be loud.
Be loud. Okay,
Yes.
So I'll be really speaking up. I hope that's
Good.
much better. So thank you so much for having me. I've been following this great discussion. So some remarks. This is currently really about the implementation gap. So, at the COP, we'll talk a lot about the global stocktake and also the loss and damage fund. But right now, it's really, as Luis mentioned, it's about moving from pledges towards implementation. So I just want to give an outlook that, for instance, we supported the African leadership in organizing the African Climate Summit. And there were more than 20 presidents present at the summit, and were very much emphasizing the role also that digital can play for the climate change agenda. So here is a key issue now that the European Green Digital Coalition, we work very closely also with the European Commission on the Team Europe initiative, together with Estonia, Belgium, Finland, France, and Germany. It's a 60 million euro program to support the EU-African connection and partnerships to develop data economy. Sustainable, what is a sustainable data economy? So basically, based on this very rich experience in the EU and the European Green Digital Coalition, I think the next step would be to work very closely together with you on the global Green Digital Coalition, because this is a global topic. So how can we work with companies like SAP and others from Europe to also develop partnerships around the world with the companies in the global south? And then there are two factors I want to bring in. So we all work very closely also with the World Bank and the ITU. So we developed the Green Data Center Guides. So data centers now are driving really, are the backbone of this digital revolution. And the growth rate is huge. So the global growth of data centers is more than 10%. It will be a market expected to be $500 billion in 2030. And it's very important that the data centers, as Luis also mentioned, that we do our homework first, that the digital sector itself is reducing the CO2 emissions, because data centers is quite worrisome. For instance, did you know there are about 60 data centers in South Africa? And so I think that's also a key aspect to that. So I know there's, and then my last point is on the usage. So the enabling factor, the enabling digital transition can reduce 15 to 20% of carbon emissions and really have a real positive impact. But the huge challenge is, did you know that in Africa about 55% of people who have connectivity, in fact, cannot use it? So there's still this huge affordability and usage gap. So in the next step, we're very happy to work with all of you together in this global, and UNEP is also a key partner of ours. GESI, we work closely EU, so basically on implementing concrete projects on the ground. We are supporting this. Yeah, I'm finishing the last sentence, thank you, with the German government already, the 15 million euro programs, and we're really looking forward to working with you on expanding the European Green Digital Coalition to a global scale, and we can support through capacity building, institutional strengthening, and actually implementing these programs on the ground.
Thank you, Soren, for the support and for the globalization idea. We go and we'll come to it. I will have to apologize because I know there are two questions, but I'll stay here and we can do it. I'll give you personal answers, okay? Because we have our president, so Ursula von der Leyen is coming, and we need to make a room for we have to finish, so the next session is prepared, but I promise to stay here and answer everybody's question. Maybe some of our panelists can stay as well, but we will have to finish here. So my last word, and that comes back to your pen, that was done with your children. There are 1.2 billion youngsters that are actually investing and thinking about future. 27% of all the investing, 45 billion, is going into climate tech startups. Those startups need a little bit of guidance not to go the wrong way. So there is a huge need of this standard, not only for countries, but also for little startups that can help looking at simple guidelines, how to develop solutions that are positive for the climate, biodiversity, pollution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.